Hello and welcome to the Hidalgo Show. I am your host, Rick the Hijo Benya, and today we talk again a little more about education of daughters. We're going to talk about it and a lot more right after this. Alright, welcome everybody to the Hidalgo Show. Today we're going to talk some more about education of daughters. We talked about this last week, but we have yet another chapter dealing with this particular subject, which I think is a pretty important one. I've often considered why is it that our educational system, our public educational systems in America are geared around teaching everything a kid or a person should know within 12 years of life. I've often contemplated why it's set up that way, and I'm not sure why it is, other than trying to, as quickly as possible, prepare somebody for the world of commerce. That would be about the only real reason to where that would be really necessary. Otherwise, if you're preparing your children to be who they're going to be for the rest of their life, I mean, that's an everyday process. Every day of life you learn more about that, and things like literature, English, math, science, social studies, health, these kind of things, they don't necessarily have to be learned in such a quick period of time. So I'm more of the belief that learning is a lifelong process, and for that reason, I'm looking at this book in a little bit of a different light, as this writer in 1847 actually talks to us about how things were in 1847 I'm kind of shocked and perplexed at how quickly we adapted to this system of public schooling, and how education ceased to be effective or ceased to be lifelong learning so very quickly in America. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our reading here of chapter 9, Education of Daughters. We have already dealt at some length on the important position of women in society and her almost unlimited influence, for good or for evil, upon the destinies of the world. And we still linger at this point, mainly in view of turning the attention of Christian parents to a thoughtful and sober examination as to what is the best method of educating their daughters, in view of the relations they will probably have to sustain in coming time. Of course, we regard their proper Christian instruction as claiming our first and highest regard, right? This is true. The comprehensive principle of St. Paul must be at the foundation and give tone and direction to all the rest of our instruction. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. For whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. Make these great truths your landmarks, and you will scarcely fail. This is true. This is true. If these are your landmarks, as he calls it, if these are the core values of your education process or system in your particular household, you will not fail. However, because of the way the public school is set up, you're destined to fail, because you're pressured to learn certain things at certain times, or else your children will not look good on the standardized testing, and questions will surely come. So that is a major obstacle, one that me and a small group of other people are looking to resign. So I'll keep you posted on that. Now it seems to us that young ladies are usually educated under auspices directly opposite, although professedly Christian. The earliest teaching, and that's very bad, by the way, the earliest teaching of maternal love tend to foster the love of show and parade, and to swell with pride and self-importance a heart naturally proud, which needed no prompting to urge it to self-idolatry. It's a natural instinct to seek out ourselves. Everything is urged upon upon the youthful and susceptible girl in the light of self-glorification. She is taught to dress, that she may be admired, and all the graces of manner and person are urged upon her with the most untiring assiduity. And the motive proposed is uniformly the same, that she may win admiration. For this purpose she goes into company, and to accomplish this all-important end, every muscle, every tendon, every nerve are subjected to an artificial discipline, the whole design and tendency of which is to destroy that simplicity and certainty of manner and character which is so lovely in women, and substitute in its stead affection or affectation of manner, and heartlessness and insincerity of character, hateful in all, but most loathsome when it marks the conduct of woman. The holy law of truth and love is forgotten, and the young lady issues forth from the paternal mansion to play her part, develop the true character of her home education in the busy whirl of society. She sets her compass, trims her sails for one point, One all-absorbing subject employs her thoughts by day and by night. Only let her be the admired of every company. Let obsequious crowds of the other sex pay their devotions at her shrine. Let them praise her beauty. For if she not beautiful, and have not her eyes often lingered long upon these charms at the mirror? Let them praise her wit, her taste, in manner and in dress, or in the selection of associates, or the skill with which she sweeps the keys of the instrument from which she has called forth the overwhelming concord of sweet sounds. These are the topics which delight, especially if the dish of gossip be spiced with a little slander, a little invidious comparison between her and her sister, candidates for exclusive worship. And then, who can tell the amount of envy and heart-burning and evil speaking which spring up along the pathway of such an one? What room is there in such a heart for God? What time has such an one for prayer, or Bible reading, or visiting the sick or poor? Alas, these things would be deemed unsuitable accompaniments to such places, employments, or companionship as these self-idolaters desire. For the Bible whispers no words of flattery, nor does the Holy Ghost dwell with or whisper of peace and joy and heaven to those who swim in the dance and grow wild with the revelry and song in the ballroom, or of the ballroom. There are not a few mothers, even among those who call themselves by the name of Christ, and kneel at God's altar, and receive from the hands of God's ministers the symbols of the body and blood of the crucified one that bought them on the cross, and who would be greatly scandalized if their claim to orthodoxy or piety were even in the slightest measure called into question. Who nevertheless regard the dancing school and the ballroom as necessary appendages to the training and conduct of their daughters. Wow. And don't tell me we're not any better today, as I see little girls going to all kinds of different civic organizations and being a part of all kinds of different groups. Dance class, arts, crafts, sports. It's a big one. Let's continue. See, if you please, that Christian mother who was yesterday at the house of God and even approached the table of the Lord. And when the pastor prayed, "Lead us not into temptation," responded, "Amen." And now it's Monday evening, and she has been busy all the livelong day. And as evening approaches, her anxieties increase until at length her work is done, and forth from her chamber comes the object of all this labor and solicitude. The Christian mother's own daughter is before you, decked in pearls and jewels, as fine as dress and art can make her. For weeks the mother and daughter have been looking forward to this night with the deepest anxiety. No pains, no expense have been spared. And now the mother gazes upon the beautiful child with a self-complacent air and says in the vanity of her heart, that ballroom will contain no form more graceful than hers, and none will be more admired than she. And then the mother follows her to the door, and after giving her one more charge as to looks and manner, resigns her child to the chances of a crowded ballroom, with all its attendants, associations, and temptations. Follow this mother to her chamber. She is alone, and it is the hour of prayer. And conscience calls her to the performance of that sacred duty. But can she attempt it? Can she call upon the Most High to protect her child? Is there not a voice of stern rebuke within her, which says, "How canst thou dare approach the presence of the pure and all-seeing One, when thou hast just sent forth thy choicest lamb, decked and garlanded, as a victim for the altar of the devil's great sacrifice?" You know, this is prom week here in this area. And isn't that what we do? Do we not dress an innocent lamb in garland, in fine satins, in fine clothing, and subject them to something that has an overwhelming temptation of corruption? Do we not do that in our society? We do it all the time. And yet, do we ever take a moment to pray about it? Or can we even get into an atmosphere of prayer after dressing up our child and sending them out the door to prom? This is a question. We've changed not. Let's continue. Alas, for this heartless mother and her devoted child. I don't know if I'm going to say heartless mother. That's tough to resign to, heartless mother. I think she loves her child, but she's misappropriating her love. Okay? Alas for this heartless mother and her devoted child. Attendance on the theater follows as a necessary preparation for her in the proper circles. And a thorough devotion to balls, assemblies, and fashionable parties marks her as a young lady of elegant accomplishments, a glittering star in the galaxy of fashion. But what has been gained in all this time on the score of health, or mind, or soul, or conscience, or purse? She has learned to prattle simpering nonsense, to enter a room with artificial grace, to be an artificial creature, all the while she remains in company. That's funny, artificial creature. You do all know that you have been made into artificial creatures by this system. Anyway, to play the hypocrite in her intercourse with others, and to be the dupe of like practices on the part of her associates. She has learned to utter slander with a particular grace. Talk like a sailor with grace, right? And her heart has received the seeds of envy and malignity and revenge, which often produce in coming time a rank and luxuriant crop of evil. One other accomplishment is also often acquired in this school: the talent for spending money with a most ladylike profusion and recklessness. Self must be beautified and glorified at any cost, and many a bankrupt father may find the cause of his ruin and beggary in the criminal selfishness and extravagant habits of such a daughter. And not a few husbands who have wrecked fortune and character and hope in the morning of life's voyage owe it all to an ill-fated co-partnership with a wife less trained. How much more wisely would mothers act if they were blended with the education of their daughters, a little more practical instruction in the duties of domestic life. Believe me, it would be no subtraction from the elegance or taste of your daughter, should she be her own milliner or mantra maker. Nor would people of good sense and taste esteem her a whit the more vulgar, because her father and brothers happen to exhibit in their garments proofs of her neatness and skill as a seamstress. or because her father's hospitable table afforded to his guest abundant practical proof of the skill and industry of both mother and daughters. Happy the daughters whose parents have good sense and firmness enough to train them thus. Kid, don't go out there and spend it all on a stupid prom, right? Come on. There's no rule at prom that says you have to go in a low-cut dress, right? There's no rule at prom. Just go. You can go. But be careful. Be smart. Leave early. That type of thing, right? Let's continue. It has often occurred to me that it might be a most desirable regulation which should prohibit the marriage of young women until they shall have acquired the necessary skill in managing matters connected with dairy and pantry and kitchen, and also of scissors and needle, so far as clothing for herself and husband and servants may be concerned. But as the ladies protest in the name of the tailors against making their husbands' coats, we consent to omit from this the list, but would not most earnestly insist that they should be prepared for every other article of the wardrobe. I know it is said that if a woman has the disposition, she will acquire, after marriage, the necessary knowledge of domestic matters. This may be true without at all affecting the propriety of the views above taken, because it is very likely that the previous habits of such ladies will prevent 2/3 of them from having the disposition. And second, there is certainly neither wisdom nor kindness in taxing one who has the disposition with the task of learning at the expense of a large expenditure of time and mortification. What might have been acquired so readily, easily, and pleasantly under the influence of maternal example and instruction, and especially when it is remembered that a large portion of the learning of her former years had infinitely better have remained unlearned. A few more remarks on this point, and we dismiss it. Christian mothers, train your daughters for the God who made her and redeemed her, and for that heaven where the pure in heart see God and dwell in His presence. And I'd even add to it this way. Christian mothers, train your daughters. Christian fathers, train your daughters to see that even now, while we are still here on this earth, we have a choice to operate in the ways of the Lord. And that by operating in the ways of the Lord, we remain in the private. And in the private, we have many freedoms under our Constitution, which is private. But forsake this and learn how to operate in the public, and you will soon find yourself operating in the ways of the world. And in that, there is no peace or sanctity or safety. The very act of trying to help another can be deemed a crime. Let's continue. Let me read that one more time. Christian mothers, train your daughters for the God who made her and redeemed her, and for that heaven where the pure in heart see God and dwell in His presence. Let her be thy companion when thou visitest the sick and poor, and make her frequently an almoner of thy charities to them. Interest her in the great benevolent purposes of the gospel, and when thou goest to thy chamber to commune in secret with thy God, let her be often thy companion. Oh, I remember when the Christian mothers of this country were wont often to take their little ones with them to the devotions of the closet. And even now, I sometimes see in families which I visit signs which I well understand. I see that mother, as the evening approaches, grow thoughtful. And soon she leaves the room followed by the little ones of her flock. I heard the door of the chamber closed and all was silent, but after a brief space that meek and prayerful mother was again in her place. Her countenance bore the impress of God, for she had just been communing with him, and the cheeks of these little ones were still wet with a tear, for that mother had just been talking with these little lambs of the Good Shepherd, and wrestling earnestly at the mercy seat for them. And oh, how precious is the influence of this example upon the hearts of children. Would that Christian parents practiced it more generally? It should be greatly better, both of them and their children, for them and their children. And now, just let me ask you, Christian mother, how much more glorious and angel-like will be the character of your child as she kneels at the altar of God, or patiently teaches a class of Sunday school, or visits the aged and sick in the darkness and desolation of their poverty, and feeds the hungry, and clothes the naked, and educates the uncared for orphan, and makes the heart of the widow to sing for joy, and gives all the energies of time and influence and purse to promote the glory of God, the happiness of man, that if she were the brightest star in the world of fashion, devoting her days and nights and expending the energies of head and heart and time and influence and money in pursuit of fashion's gay and heartless and lying rewards. On which side lies the advantage? Even here. But when our vision passes the boundary of earth and sweeps far into eternity, and we stand before the throne of the eternal and gaze on the whole scene in the light of eternity, or how infinitely does the glory of the one excel the other. So, that was chapter 9, Education of Daughters. I hope you did pull something from this that affects your particular life. I hope that you gain some profound understanding of what our country was based on and founded on, and in how Christian mothers and fathers, daughters, sons are what developed constitutional government. And in fact, living in the private actually supported constitutional government. And it is sad that just a few years later, after this book is written, that the Civil War broke out, and that so many things had to fail after the Civil War, including the Republican form of government, as it was previously known, and that the 14th Amendment had to be part of the reparations that brought in the rebel states back into union. Sad that fictional characters, straw men, had to be invented in order to do commerce by trickery, to create an agent relationship to the United States and its new corporation founded in 1871. It is sad that these things happened, but even today we have remedy, and our remedy is actually closer than we think. We can live private lives. We can be private, and we can enforce each other's privacy. If you've not had an opportunity to listen to my series called Back to Goshen, I would encourage you to do so. as I did give some tips as to how we might reform Goshen. If you and others who were similarly minded in worldview came together and decided that you were going to take that which you were blessed with, your abundance, and put it into a, let's call it a pot. And that pot suddenly became of size that you could go out and you could buy land. That land, it could be the beginnings of your new community. It could be the beginnings of a place where you come together, work together, rest together, pray together, praise together, and enforce one another's great and amazing private capacity. This is really what Goshen is, a place where all of us who are seeking to do things according to the ways of the Lord can be. The very moment that the ways of the Lord are abandoned, the Lord sends disaster, destruction to come and take the land back. The land is only good for those who are operating according to the ways of the Lord. So make up your mind. Choose those who you want to be in community with and get to work. This is something that I believe will be easier to do within not so long from now, as different things come available. One of the things I'm talking about is if you're watching the news and you're realizing that that this guy with the one-letter consonant that posts all this interesting intelligence on websites that are on 8chan and other boards. If you're following those drops, you'll realize that there is a grand change coming to this world. That's not to say it's revival. Revival comes internally as people yearn for God. But it is certainly a door that will open to give opportunity for revival. And revival is something that must take place individually, as each one of us choose in what ways we will live. And hopefully we will not mix our allegiance, because a mixed allegiance is no allegiance. We are either one or we're the other. To abandon the ways of the world is to take on the ways of the Lord, and vice versa. So with that said, that's really all I have for today. I want to thank all of you for listening. I want to thank my patrons who continue to support me. I'm so thankful for you guys. You guys make it possible for me to come back here every Monday and do this again. And I'm actually excited about doing it. It's not anything that I'm not excited about doing. I am very excited about coming back here and doing this every single Monday. And I thank you for the opportunity to do that. You make it possible. It is true. You make it possible, because I probably would have abandoned it by now if I didn't have good patrons. Thank you very much. Please recognize that I acknowledge my patrons at the end of the video in the credits. It's very important. If you want to become a patron, you certainly can. There's a link below that you can visit, and you can check out our Patreon page. You can become a patron for at least $1 a month. I would encourage you to make a $5 a month pledge for a while. I don't think there's a time frame. You can cancel at any time. But I would encourage you $5 or more, because you'll get the extended content. You'll get other content that others do not get. So there's also, if you cannot be a patron, if for some reason you have a financial difficulty and being a patron is not something that you can do, I understand. It's not easy for me either. This really is. I have a side business that I do from home, but that's about all I have for myself. And so I totally understand those of you that cannot be a patron. So don't feel pressured to be a patron. If you can't be a patron, we do have a Facebook page. I would love for you to come to our Facebook page and to like it. It's the HIdalgo Show. It's actually facebook.com/The Real HIdalgo Show. And I would like for you to like it. The more likes that I get, the more Facebook, gives other people suggestions to like my page. And that's something that would really help to grow everything. If you're not one of those that attend Facebook very often, or you don't like social media, we do have a YouTube channel. And I would encourage highly everybody to be subscribed to the YouTube channel and to share it across their, whatever platforms they use. Even if it's just email, share with your mailing list the email of these shows, the link to the YouTube of these shows. Most people are into YouTube anymore. YouTube is a big platform for sharing information. So that would be great if you did something like that. Otherwise, I do have an email address. You can shoot me an email and you can talk to me, ask me questions, make comments, do whatever you'd like to do through that email address. And also, I do have a mailing address that you can send me mail. If you send me mail and you want me to open it online, just put a note in there and I'll open it online and, do whatever you instruct me to do with that particular mailing. So these are the different options that we have here at the HIdalgo Show. But most of all, just give me feedback. Let me know, are you enjoying the shows? Is this something that's going over your head? Is it hitting you where it counts? What exactly is going on? Let me know. Feedback is important. I don't get lots of feedback. It would be great to hear from some of you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. With that said, that's really all I have to say. I just have to remind everybody one more time that here at the HIdalgo Show, everything we do is all about the blood.